test.
Like these earphones, I gotta get some better earphones. Test. There it is. Yeah, it's working.
We're not expecting a very big crowd for this field, but we do have a couple of longest looks on here. We don't understand if people are getting a chance to us, but we've got some points expecting more maybe and if they come to the podium, she'll be available too.
And what's her name?
Yolanda Saldana.
It's not Donna yet, it's Donna. Saldana.
Let me go verify.
Little what?
Have your BlackBerry, or you want me to give you a thumbs up for this? She doesn't have a PowerPoint.
Okay, well, when we get to 3, I mean, if you would be standing right there close to where Jed's at, thumbs up or thumbs down. If she's not here, we'll give her, we'll give her the opportunity maybe afterwards, but this is, yeah?
Hi. Hi.
Okay.
Hi, Kim. Okay. Right.
No, we're going to go in order.
Good. Yeah, Alan served on that. Yeah. Good morning again. Okay. Well, good. Nice meeting you.
No, we'll do it in order.
Hi.
You don't take order.
Yes.
Okay, because
Hi, Kim. Nice to meet you.
the press is all set
Right.
like that, and then you know what they'll do is they'll step outside.
This person's not here.
Right.
But they don't show.
You don't
Very good.
Nice to have you here.
If they're not here, it's going to get. We appreciate that. Thanks very much. I've been told this takes 5 minutes. Hi there.
Hello.
I don't
He's yours.
Hi, Kim. Okay.
Supervisor Cox,
Good morning.
introduce myself. I'm Kim Parr of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy.
Great to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
And we're all set up and ready to go.
Yeah, so we'll just be presenting a short presentation.
Great. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
That conference we got. Wanted to prep the board. They were.
Good morning. Welcome to the April 28th meeting of the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. Please stand with me as we salute the flag and remain standing for a moment of silence. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. We have a couple of presentations to begin our day with. First, we have an introduction. So, Mr. Lewis, we would love to turn a few minutes of time over to you.
Good morning, Board, CAO, Council. It's a beautiful day today, and I'm very happy to be here to announce that I have a new Deputy County Librarian. I consider us very lucky to have Mr. Scott working here. He's exactly the same age I was when I came 25 years ago. So, what are you, 15? Something like that.
I didn't know teenagers had those kinds of degrees.
Yeah. And the best thing is he's not a San Francisco Giant fan, so we'll get along very well. Anyway, with that, I'd like to introduce the new Deputy County Librarian, Jeff Scott.
Thank you for that, Brian. Thank you for. It's great to be aboard with Tulare County. I'm really excited to start my work here and see what we can do for your citizens. Come over from Casa Grande, Arizona, which is in between Phoenix and Tucson. You wouldn't see it until on the freeway until you come right upon it. So it's nice to be in a bigger city with all the resources that you do have. So I'm really excited, and thank you for having me aboard.
Great. We look forward to working with you. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Lewis. We do look forward to working with you folks in the near future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is a presentation by Kim Carr. She is the Mount Whitney Area Manager for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. Good morning, Ms. Carr. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Morning, Chairman and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Kim Carr, and I'm the Mount Whitney Area Manager for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. We're a relatively new state agency. We do work from the Oregon border nearly to Bakersfield, and so as far as Tulare County, the eastern portion of your county encompasses our boundaries, so primarily the foothills. We're nearly 5 years old. We'll have our 5th year anniversary this September. We were signed into law by Governor Schwarzenegger in 2004, and it was a bill introduced by Assembly members Leslie and Laird. So we have a very unique mission in that it's really sustainability. Our primary focus is protecting all of the resources, natural, archaeological, cultural, historical, but also supporting local and regional economies to succeed in these rural areas, and then also the social well-being of the residents and the visitors to the Sierra Nevada. So we've divided the area into 6 different regions, and the significance of this is that we have 13 board members, 7 are state appointed, 6 are county representatives. And so you can see we have 6 different areas, and Tulare County is in our southern Sierra subregion with Madera, Fresno, Tulare, and Kern. The significance of this is that the county board members serve for 2 years and rotated among these 4 county members. So we have had Supervisor Ishida serve 2 years. Currently, your representative for this region is Supervisor McQuiston from Kern County. And as I mentioned, here's our 13-member board and 7 state appointments, 6 county seats, I should say, and then 3 federal government liaisons. So our funding source, we do not come out of the general fund. Our funding sources actually come from license plate funds. And so when you purchase a personalized license, some of the proceeds goes to our organization. We're going to be launching our own plate in the fall, so stay tuned for that. And then also, we are administering a lot of the Proposition 84 dollars. And to date, Tulare County's done very well. We've awarded over 15 projects funding in your county, totaling over $1 million. And again, that's just for the eastern portion of the county. So we have a lot of different program areas, anywhere from tourism and recreation, protecting all of the resources, protecting working landscapes, trying to support ranchers and agriculture to stay on their lands, trying to minimize wildfires, protect water and air quality, local and regional economies, and then also public lands so that they can continue to be accessed. So I'm going to leave you with an annual report that we put together summarizing what we've basically done the last 3 to 4 years. In there it lists the projects that we have funded to date in this county. And this is the just a sampling of the grant recipients in your county. There's actually a few more than that, but we have funded some of the fire safe councils, and some of the community wildfire protection plans, some environmental education programs, meadow restoration in the Forest Service lands, and then also with the community services and employment training, a unique program that includes a nonprofit, the Forest Service, and then this job training organization to basically protect the Forest Service lands with recycling, trash cleanup, graffiti cleanup, that type of thing. So educating the youth, but also employing them. And we've done some work with the Tule River tribe as well. So just a quick sampling. So you've probably heard what happened in mid-December was the decision was made to basically stop all work on grants that had been awarded. And so we had to stall about 150 projects at about $20 million worth of work. Just last week, we were given the order to restart these projects. So we're currently in the process of contacting the grantees and getting the program moving again. So really our main goal is to work in collaboration and cooperation with local governments and interested parties in carrying out the Conservancy's mission. And so we're really interested in continuing to build relationships with particularly the local government. We've had a great response in Tulare County from the nonprofits, but we want to be able to continue to work with you and your staff to encourage you to submit grant applications and communicate with us other ways that we can support what Tulare County is attempting to do, particularly in your foothills area. So this is the contact information. As I mentioned, I'm the Mount Whitney area manager. So what that means is the team I head up covers everything south of Tahoe. So we're located in the Mariposa office, but we have a representative here in Three Rivers, a representative in Bishop, and then most of our staff is in Auburn. So with that, do you have any questions?
I'm surprised that these two here to my right aren't jumping on this. It seems to me like, is there an opportunity here to provide some cleaning up and taking some of the fuel out of the area that might, tend to feed forest fires that occur? I mean, is that part of what we're doing there?
Yeah, and in fact, we've funded 2 grants to date for the planning of that, the community wildfire protection plans, because basically you have to have a plan in place, do your CEQA documentation, and then you can move forward with fuels reduction projects. Great. And so all of that is eligible. The planning, the environmental work, and the work itself is eligible for funding.
Great. I mean, we know that's the importance of that, because if you don't clear those fuels out, it's like pouring gasoline down there and waiting for a match to be tossed out onto it. So that's great. I think that's a wonderful part of that program.
Sure. Just a comment. I'm sorry that Mr. Sheet is not here this morning, because he probably would have a lot to say about because he's been intricately involved in it. But I just want to say that I do appreciate also the focus of this organization has been one of collaboration and not acquisition of real estate and that sort of thing. I think there's some specific language that really prohibits that sort of thing from happening. So people don't see the organization as sort of a land grab or land controlling, but rather helping people with their property and how to make better use of it. So I think the focus has been a good one. I think that Tulare County has been a beneficiary of a lot of these things because we've been prepared to accept other counties perhaps were not as far along in some of the plans and so forth as Tulare County was, so I know we've been able to receive funds. I think other counties have not. So I want to thank you for your being here this morning, and also for, again, the focus of this organization and how it really seems to be playing out very, very well. Phil's correct in talking about fuel reductions. We need to remember that the focus on this is basically private lands in the foothill areas. There are obviously opportunities for the what you're talking about, but the problem is even larger scale when you look at national forest and national park, which makes up a very big part of Tulare County. But
That's right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman. Yeah, and I think that it's important that we get these communities in the mountain areas to apply for these grants that you do have. I know up in the Camp Nelson area, Sequoia Crest Alpine, every year they go through and try to get a chipper shredder brought in, and all the people get together and take all the dead limbs off the bottom of the trees and stack them up, and then those are the type of grants, and then they have somebody come through and chip all that stuff up, which stops the fire hazard within the community. So, and keeps if a cabin catches fire, to keep it from getting out of the forest. That's the important thing. So, no, very good program, and very glad you're here today to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great having a partnership like this available to the county.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is we'll have a presentation given by a representative of the United States Bureau of Census. It's fast coming upon us again. 2010 is approaching faster than we've seen, so I will introduce our representative. And we also have a proclamation to give to you as well at the end of your presentation. So, Mr. Ford, would you like to make the introduction? So no.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Dolores Gallegos, and I am with the U.S. Census. And as we all know, the U.S. Constitution mandates that an actual count of the population be taken every 10 years, and it's that time again. So, and we all realize the importance of the census, and we all want to make sure that everybody in our communities are counted. We're all worth approximately $1,000 to the government, each one of us per year. So if 100 people in your community go uncounted times $1,000 times 10 years, your community loses $1 million. So the U.S. Census, we have some maps where we have red zones, and the red zones are the hard to count in everyone's community. And city in the county of Visalia has a pretty large red zone, and so we have a lot of hard to count areas in your community. I'm also very proud to inform you that our main office for both Kings and Tulare counties, I'm a partnership specialist, and I represent Kings County and Tulare counties, incorporated and unincorporated cities as well. And very proud to say that our main office, we refer to them as ELCO, E-L-C-O, and that's Early Local Census Office, will be opening up in Visalia. And we're hoping, and we're saying that it's going to take place in October, and so we will be looking and hiring a lot of your local people from your community to fill those positions. The office probably will have approximately maybe 40 staff people there with a manager until probably September of next year. So it will bring a few jobs into the community. I just want to also mention that this time around, compared to the year 2000, we have a short form, only 10 questions on the form. So we refer to it as 10 questions, takes 10 minutes to fill out, and it will be advantageous for the next 10 years for your communities. And the only time that the census will come knocking on your door is when the forms will be coming out in March, probably the 18th and 19th of the year 2010. And we just have 10 questions to fill out and return. And it's when we don't return them that we'll come knocking on your door. And we'll come knocking on your door, and we'll come knocking on your door until we get that count. So if we fill them out and return them, then we're okay. And I'm be more than glad to answer any questions you may have, and that concludes my short presentation to you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you brought up what the actual dollar amount is for those being counted. I know, as having been involved in government for a while, that we want to make sure that people realize it's important to be counted, because that does mean a loss of funding for the county, for cities, for the state if you're not counted. So I'm glad that you're here making that public announcement, that, and we hope that people understand when they get that, please fill it out and please get it in, because we need as many numbers as we can get.
Sure.
And I do have a proclamation. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment? And I will, after Supervisor Worthley, I'll meet you right down here in the middle, and I'd like to present.
I wanted to make another comment, is that the city of Visalia, every community, every incorporated city has formed a complete count committee, and that involves everyone in your community and from all walks of life. We have representatives from the media, from the businesses, from the schools, from the faith-based organizations, from CBOs. And Nancy Loliva is chairing that, and I have to tell you that the city of Visalia makes me very proud, because the city of Visalia also set aside monies to promote the census, and that's the only city in the 2 counties that has done that. They're very active. They have a wonderful committee. They're still forming it, so if anyone from your county is contacted, please send a representative to work with the city as well, because it's crucial that we all give our input, and we get all the dollars that are coming to us. We get our fair share of our money. Also, the CDBG monies for the cities are totally based on the census count. RDA monies come from the census count. Services through the county, community action, is almost totally, 98% on the census count. So it's crucial for all the services that are brought into our counties.
Thank you.
Just want to say, with a last name like mine, it's always good to know you're worth something, so I appreciate that.
Even though it's $1,000.
My wife. One of the things I was just going to say is that there's been, I know I was over at my mom's house, which happens to be close to where I live, and there was some advanced folks from the census that came out and passed out literature to us and so forth. So apparently you're already out there working, and happy to see that. And I think whatever we can do to promote, and that's why we're happy to have you here today and have the proclamation, is to promote this, because we do have a lot of those folks that are probably a little hard to count out in the unincorporated communities of Tulare County. So whatever we can do to reassure them that we're not there to seek deportation, we're not there to create problems, we're there really to benefit them and to benefit our communities is very important. So.
Absolutely. And the number one target population that was undercounted in the year 2000 were the children. And so it's really a shame, because, no one ever thought it would be the children. But the Hispanic community and the minority and the socioeconomic people and areas and communities are the ones that are undercounted. Those are the red zones, and we have to hit those areas, and a lot of it is fear. And you did mention deportation, INS, IRS. One thing that the census came out is a big poster, and we have no INS, no CIA, no FBI, no IRS. So hopefully that sends a message. The schools also play a crucial part in this, because we send all our messages and letters through our children to take home, and to reassure the parents that all the information that the census collects is confidential. And if any, we do have canvassing, and they're called address canvassers right now. They have a handheld, computerized device. And so if our sheriff is here, and someone's standing in front of a door with something and looking kind of suspicious, it probably is one of our workers, because they're confirming the address that's on the computerized device in their hand. So, but anyway, I also want to let you know that, because a couple of my other cities have been getting quite a few reports that there was a strange young person standing in front of my house with something in their hand. So. It's probably us.
One last comment. If we undercounted children, and it's going to be interesting, because last census, 1/3 of our population of Tulare County was between the ages 0 and 19. So if we undercounted them, Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where the schools come in. It's based on the census count, and so now if they're undercounted and they want to build schools, they'll say you don't have enough kids, not according to the census, so.
Morris, can I meet you right over here? You can't get through the security tape over there. It's highly secure. Well, on behalf of the board, I'd like to present this to you in recognizing the United States Census Bureau for its efforts in the 2010 census. We look forward to working with you, and also the jobs that will come this way for this next summer. So if you mind looking this way, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
I feel somewhat scatterbrained a little bit this morning. I failed to recognize that we obviously do have an empty chair. Mr. Ishida called me late last night from an airport saying that he was not going to be able to make it in because someone had messed up on his ticket. And so he's in an airport as we speak, getting on a plane, flying this way. Our next item we have on the agenda is our public comment period. As we start that, I'd like to call Ray Bullock and Dr. Hott up, and they do have an announcement that they would like to make, and I'm wondering if we have masks to be passed around. Mr. Bullock.
Well, good morning, and thanks for taking the time out of your public comment section to just allow us to come before your board this morning to talk briefly about the recent epidemic that you've been reading about in the paper and hearing about in every news media. And in the interest of time, we'll keep our comments short, but we've been asked by some of the media if they could have some time with us afterwards, and so we'll step outside after our formal presentation and answer questions for the media. But just briefly, to introduce the context of our discussion this morning, in 1977, those of us that are old enough may recall the swine flu campaign and the immunization campaign. More recently, in 2003, there was the SARS concern, and if you recall, the China and the problem up in Toronto. And I think at that point we really realized, or at least the public health officials realized, that we had some real significant shortfalls in our public health infrastructure and being able to respond to some sort of a pandemic situation, because with the mobility that we have with air travel, et cetera, these bugs no longer need to come across on ships or long term. They can be anywhere just in a short period of time. And then more recently, even after that, we had the concern with the avian flu and the documented cases of bird flu in several countries throughout the world. And it was at that time that our federal government and state government, to a lesser degree, put money into developing those infrastructures. And so I just want to open today's comment by saying this county has been very, very invested in developing the infrastructure over the past 4 years to have a plan in place to address the very thing that we're seeing. And a critical part, and I'm looking over here at the press, is utilizing the press when these types of situations occur so that we can get factual information out regarding our community and what it is that we are asking people to do. And so clearly the press is an integral part. They have been present in a number of our planning sessions. And even as we speak, I think one of the frustrations for the front end, so to speak, of an epidemic is that the information changes dramatically on an hourly basis. So you're going to be seeing some slides that Dr. Hott's going to be presenting based on some conference call information that we received yesterday afternoon. We already know that that data is outdated. So it's going to be critical that when the press, the general public, and everybody is listening to these comments, that they understand that there's a need to continue to stay listening, because as we move through the phases of an epidemic, and Dr. Hott will be clarifying what that means, I think the information and the direction that we give to the public is different. And currently we're at what's classified as the WHO level 4 epidemic, And so that carries with it a certain set of recommendations, and that will change if and when we move to the level 5. So I just wanted to let you know that this is something that we have been planning for, and we have done a number of things. Dr. Hott will be sharing that with you, and I'll let her up without any further comments at this point to brief the board on the actual data that we have to date.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board, for the opportunity to talk about this today. This is just a very spontaneous chance to be able to talk to you because this is just a newly developing situation. Well, sorry. Oh, not that, this one? Okay, sorry for my...
Maybe just go there.
Okay, thank you. Well, the reason this is a concern is that the swine flu virus is what we call a novel virus. It's a new virus that's never been seen before. And that poses problems in a couple of ways. One is that people don't have any baseline immunity to this virus, so there's not any innate protection to the virus. And the other is that we just don't know what to expect from it. We don't know if it will be severe cases or mild cases or how contagious it is. The virus has been found to have portions of human influenza virus, swine influenza, and avian influenza strains combined into one virus. In the past, the swine flu has been an infection that stayed in the pigs and occasionally was transmitted to humans and did not transmit very far amongst humans, maybe just 1 or 2 transmissions. But this seems to be a different situation in that there's no clear link with this virus and the people that have been infected to exposure to pigs, and it seems to be spreading more between people than previous incidents of swine influenza. And since it's different than the seasonal influenza, the seasonal vaccine that we give every year does not give any protection against this virus. Well, this is, like Ray mentioned, already out of date. As of this morning, the total number of cases for the country is up to 64. And then we don't have the numbers, but the other part of the situation is that there's quite a few cases in Mexico. We don't know the numbers total, but the concern in Mexico is the cases seem to have been more severe than they've been reported to be in the United States, and there have been some deaths associated with it. So far in the United States, all the cases have been mild, and only a few who had underlying conditions required hospitalizations, but there have been no deaths. And then now, as of this morning, they've also reported other countries, several European countries are now reporting cases also. Well, the most important thing for prevention is, just like with seasonal influenza, is that if you're sick, you should stay home. If you have a fever with a cough, well, anytime you have a fever, but for this case it implies to fever with a cough or sore throat, that you should not be going to school, should not be at work. And if the other aspects of infection prevention are covering your nose and mouth if you're coughing or sneezing, frequent hand washing, that's very important to prevent all kinds of communicable disease. To avoid touching your face, your eyes, your mouth, because germs get on your hand and then you expose yourself to those germs. To avoid close contacts with sick people, and right now they're recommending to avoid travel to Mexico because of the large number of cases there unless it's an emergency. Those people that are ill, they need to contact their provider, their medical provider, to discuss whether they need to be seen, whether they need to be tested, and whether treatment is needed. I went backwards, sorry. So right now in Tulare County, we've operated the Health Departmental Operational Center to keep ourselves well-informed and keep abreast of all that we need to do. We're having daily meetings of the DOC to coordinate our work. We've shared all the information we get through the state with all the partners in the county. The hospitals are working to test any hospitalized patient with an influenza-like illness, and providers have been informed about the situation, and they're testing anybody with symptoms that look suspicious for influenza if they have a risk factor of travel to Mexico or exposure to someone else with a known case of this influenza, such as someone from another county. Our public health lab is an excellent public health lab, and they're able to do this testing. They get a specimen, which is often a nasopharyngeal specimen or a bronchial wash from a hospitalized patient, and they test it for whether or not it's influenza, and then after that they decide to have a test to determine if it's A or B influenza, and then they can subtype it to determine what strain of influenza it is, if it's an A influenza. If they find that it's not subtypable on their test, that's highly suspicious of swine influenza, and then that specimen would be sent to the CDC. We are also coordinating with our public health nurses and our communicable disease office to help and assist providers to obtain tests for patients, to arrange a place where they can refer patients that need to have a specimen obtained and collected for testing if other providers don't have the equipment or the protective equipment that's needed to do the testing. And we've been talking with the schools about what to expect. So that's what we know at this point. So if there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer what we know.
Supervisor Vanderpool.
I just was going to ask your last comment kind of touched on it. What are we doing to help educate the children in the schools, because they're the ones that don't really watch the news, they don't read the newspaper, and so they're not exposed to all the information that's out there. Are we doing any sort of outreach to reach out to the schools and the kids?
Well, the schools have had a lot of campaigns recently as part of pandemic avian influenza preparedness, and also because of their concerns about methicillin-resistant staph infections. They've had a lot of campaigns in the schools about hand washing, so that's been ongoing, but now they're also stepping that up. They're continuing that and stepping it up now related to this, and we've sent out a letter last night for the schools to share with the parents that goes over this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there comments, questions? Well, thank you so much. I know we need to, as I've watched the news in the last few days, I made the little joke about wearing the mask, but you see it more and more on the news. My wife just left the hospital, and the common practice for everyone coming or going out of that room was to use the sanitizer right by the door to make sure that germs weren't spread. So that's so important to make sure that you're constantly aware of not passing on any kinds of germs. So thank you today for your presentation, and I think this is good information for the public to have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue with our public comment period. If anybody would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. I think everybody's going outside to talk with the press. Seeing none, we will go to Board of Supervisor matters, and we'll start to my far right, Supervisor Ennis.
Thank you, Chairman. Last week we had another rail meeting, and kind of update you on what's going on there on the East Side Rail. We did find out that the line from Altra to Ducor has been put in non-op. They're not putting it in for abandonment, but they're doing a non-op on it. So that's another section that comes in from the Jovista to Strathmore line. It's a little sideline that comes off there. We're trying very hard to get Fresno and Kern County on board. we found that San Joaquin Valley Rail is already starting to put surcharges on rail cars in the Bakersfield area to try to dry the business up so they can apply for abandonment down there. But in the meantime, we're putting together a shippers association to try to lure a outside buyer to come in and maybe work a partnership between the counties and a rail company to take the rail over and buy San Joaquin Valley Rail out. If that could happen, that would be a godsend. If we could get from Kern County to Fresno, then we could put an east side rail together. And also working on a rail plan so that when we do go to Washington, D.C. and try to solicit some federal dollars, that we have a plan in place so that we can work with a private company to upgrade the rail so that we can go to the 133-pound rail and be able to haul just about every commodity that is available out there. So we're still working on it, still pursuing it. That's why Mr. Ishida's not here today. He was at a meeting yesterday trying to talk to some outside rail companies to possibly buy out San Joaquin Valley Rail. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Thank you. Supervisor Worthley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow, the CEO, myself, and Mr. Sheet will be going to Sacramento to meet with our lobbyists and various representatives, state representatives on county issues. On this Friday in Bakersfield, we have a grand opening. The San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District has 3 offices, one in Modesto, one in Fresno, one in Bakersfield. For many years, the Air District operated out of the facilities that belonged to Kern County. Kern County had need for those facilities, and so we were asked to vacate the premises, and so we have a new office that will have its grand opening Friday morning, which I will be attending as your representative. That's about it, sure.
Thank you. Supervisor Vanderpool.
Just been working pretty hard on the South County Gang Awareness Forum, which is going to be an event that's going to be held on June 1st, and it's now going to be located at the Pixley Middle School or Elementary School on their football field, because we outgrew the size of the facilities in Pixley rather quickly. So we're very excited for a great turnout down there, and really to help spread awareness and spread the message down there. So just been working on that.
Great, thank you. I just have one thing. Most of you are aware, my wife was in the hospital last week for some surgery. She has returned home. She's doing very well. Her color's good. She's up and about, walking around, and I'd like to personally thank all those that expressed their concern for her welfare. But she is doing very well and is progressing very well at home. So thank you. We will next address the consent calendar. We do have 2 addenda items. Is there any one of the board members or anyone from the public that would like to pull any consent calendar item for separate consideration?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a comment regarding item N. To clarify, the agreement that's attached is a draft agreement, and it may be different once it's reviewed by council.
So noted. Is there anyone else wishing to pull an item?
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval
I'll second that.
of the items presented, including the addendum, with the also accepting the comments made by council.
Moved by Supervisor Wordley, seconded by Supervisor Vanderpool. Cast your votes. It is unanimous, 4-0. Supervisor Ishida not being present. Thank you. We will now turn to our 9:30 time items. Item number 6 is a public hearing, which is a request by Resource Management Agency to consider the vacation of Road 128 between Avenue 136 and 144. Mr. Fussell.
Morning, Board. Britt Fussell, Assistant Director with the Resource Management Agency. As the Chair indicated, the item before you this morning is a request to vacate Road 128. It's between Avenue 144 and Avenue 136, and it's southeast of the community of Tipton, and it was requested by Manuel and Dolly Faria, Better Farms, property owners abutting the road segment. Here's a graphic of its location. Again, it's southeast of the community of Tipton. The road's approximately 1 mile in length. There's a photograph to kind of give you a sense of how the road relates to land use in the area and the cropping patterns. You can see there are a couple dairies out in that area. Property abutting the road is currently cropped. closer in. Here's a picture of being on Road 128 and looking south towards Avenue 136, just north of Avenue 136, and about a quarter mile north of that location, and then turning around and facing north towards Avenue 144. Portion of the road was originally dedicated by the San Joaquin Development Company Subdivision Number 2 in 1910, and the remainder acquired in 1932. The affected parcel surrounding the road vacation is our zone AE40. Again, 1 mile of unimproved gravel roadway, of which the south 3/4 mile is not in the county's maintained mileage system. However, the north 1/4 mile is in the county's maintained mileage system as a review of this request. Staff has concluded that the road is not necessary for present or future public use, and that access can be provided to all of the affected parcels along existing roadways. Taking the proceedings in accordance with Streets and Highways Code Section 8300, the petition was filed in accordance with 8321. Public notice was posted and published. We had planning staff review it for general plan conformity. And this morning is the public hearing required by the Streets and Highways Code. Staff is recommending, after holding the public hearing, that the board approve the vacation of Road 128 as described in the agenda item. That staff respond to any questions.
I'm looking at the petition here. Was this signed by all the property owners that are affected, the petition that we have in our agenda item?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Nope. Okay, thank you. We will open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to address this item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing nobody, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for consideration.
I'll move approval.
Okay, we'll move by Supervisor Vanderpool, seconded by Supervisor Ennis. Please cast your votes. There's 4 to the positive, Supervisor Ishida not being present. Thank you, Mr. Fussell.
Thank you, Board. This is the way I'd like all my public hearings on vacation.
No promises.
So would we.
Item number 7 is a request for a public hearing from our Health and Human Service Agency to consider adopting proposed fees for animal control. Mr. Davis, good morning.
Good morning, Supervisor. John Davis, Health and Human Services Agency. We have before you 3 requests, really, that we conduct a public hearing on the fee request that you have before you, to adopt the recommended fees for animal control, environmental health, mental health, and the public guardian, and finally to authorize us to begin collecting those fees on July 1st of 2009. Just briefly, our fees for animal control, start there, I guess. The fees for animal control are tied to the fees that exist elsewhere in the county, in the cities, and for the most part, and in some cases we're looking at our own costs. You know, of course, we can't claim more than we pay for providing the services, but in some cases we do that. We actually have to charge a service fee. And you'll see that's tied, for example, to the animal control officer. We aren't asking for any change in fee there, but the fact is we do send him out on special assignment. The second one that you have before you is environmental health. That comes to you every year. It's tied exactly to our costs. We're fully fee-based in those charges. And you'll see that most of those are like a 2% difference now, 2 and 3%. So costs really haven't gone up very much at all. The third one we'd like to pull, mental health, and that is because in the difference, or in the time between when we submitted this document and today, the state has rolled back its fee. Those were fees that were for mental health facilities. The state actually established those charges, and if they're going to roll them back, there obviously is no reason for us to go forward. So we'd ask you to delete that from any motion that your board takes. And finally, of course, we have the public guardian, and we're moving our fee from $35 for those who aren't SSI to $37. We adjust that every year as the Social Security Administration allows us to charge whatever fee they set, and that is the fee they set. If there are questions, literally everybody's here to answer the questions on the fees.
I would note I'm always happy to see what the fees were and what they're going up, and I look at this little percentage thing, and the majority of these fees are between 95 and 98%, and so they're not being increased by very much at all. So I like to see when we keep pace and we're not having to up the fees 20, 30, 40%. So it's good to see that, for me, that you stay on top of this and that there's not a huge jump from one year to the next. That's just me personally. I like to see, steady increases instead of leaving it where it's at and then having to play catch up.
Exactly. And I think several years ago we did play that, but Larry's been watching these for year after year for the last several years, and the increments are very small.
Are there any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we will have the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. If there's anybody from the public that would like to address this item, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing, bring this back to the board for consideration. Keeping in mind that the request is to pull the mental health fees from this request.
Approval, Mr. Chairman, absent the mental health fees.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Worthley, second by Mr. Ennis. And it is 4 to the positive, Supervisor Ashita not being present. Thank you. We will now move to our final public agenda item, which is a request from Resource Management Agency to consider the temporary receivership of Seville Water Company. I would like to note that we do have an interpreter here. Miss Yolanda Saldana is available to interpret. She is sitting in the back. Could you raise your hand, please, so that I can see where you're at? Or she's going to stand up. Thank you very much. She is here to provide translation from English to Spanish or Spanish to English. So if you would like to address the board and you need interpretation, Ms. Saldana is here to provide that service. So we will now turn the time over to Mr. Fussell to make the staff presentation.
Thank you, Board. Brett Fussell, Assistant Director with the Resource Management Agency. And again, the item before you this morning is a request for the Board to consider the temporary receivership of the Seville Water Company and to take any necessary actions related thereto, subject to some terms and conditions that I've identified for the Board's consideration. First, recognize that the receivership is intended to be temporary and would suggest that it last no longer than 24 months. Second, that through the receivership process that the court identify and provide to the county as the fiduciary all rights and interests in the Seville Water Company necessary to operate the system. Third, to deal with any potential liability issues by releasing the county from any liability that might be associated with past operation of the Seville Company, and to follow what's allowed for in state law, that the county is not personally liable for its good faith, reasonable efforts to assume possession of and operate the system in compliance with the court order. And then lastly, that the court set a monthly water service charge of $60 per single family residence or equivalent, and to do it in such a way that if it's determined that it's costing more to operate the system than the $60 per month generates, that it could be adjusted. And I did receive a comment on the agenda item after it was published, and I will speak to that a little bit later in the presentation. I would also like to acknowledge that in your chambers this morning we have representatives from the California Department of Public Health, Self-Help Enterprises, the Community Water Center, the Community of Seville, as well as a representative of the BH Trust number 101, which owns the property that the well and the storage tanks sit. As you've seen before, the request came through Self-Help. Location of Seville relative to the county, southeast of Orosi, northwest of Woodlake. Basically, we're dealing with the area that's already comprises the county's zone of benefit for the sewer services that it provides in Seville. And this is just a diagram of the water system that was prepared back in '88. Actually, the highlighted lines, yellow, show the water system, although there's some areas of, if I can get my mouse to work, up in this area that are not highlighted. The green are the areas where there's things growing as a result of leaking in the system. The system is very porous and leaky.
Please do not refer to them as wetlands.
Right, no. Assessor's parcel map, and I bring this for the board's attention from the perspective that this is where the well site is located right here on what I will refer to as the 04 parcel, and the 03 parcel, which is just north of it. One of the things we did try to do was some research as to when was the system established. I went back through encroachment permit records, which go back as far as 47, and could not find any encroachment permit issued for the system, so it's probably built many, many years ago. I did find an encroachment permit issued to Mr. Benzenberg, who operated the system to install a line from the well site up to Stone Corral School, which is right here. And I also found an action in the records of, in about 68 or 69, Mr. Benzenberg requested that the board abandon the alley through this area right here, which was granted. Oops, going the wrong direction, sorry about that. Again, small company, 75 homes, 400 residents, and 123 students and 20 staff at the school. You've seen this before, comprised of a well, 10 horsepower submersible pump. There is a booster pump, a storage tank, and pressure tanks on the site, and I'll address those in greater detail shortly. And as noted on that graphic, the distribution is leaking in numerous places. It's considered a small system under state law, so therefore oversight is provided by Tulare County Environmental Health, which I failed to acknowledge are also in the room. Been in constant violation of the health code, and the well is producing water that's high in nitrates. There's been some questions about the ownership of the system, and this was a little tough to kind of track down and try to make a conclusion from. But the best that we can tell is that the system was owned and operated for many years by Philip G.H. Benzenberg. He transferred the well site, as I refer to as the 04 parcel, to the BH Trust number 101 back in October of 1994, and then transferred his interest to the lots that he owned in the area to Grandview Properties Incorporated, or Joseph Lane, and that happened back in January of 2000. The transfer to Grandview Properties included this paragraph at the end of that deed, and this is where we see that the transfer of the water system, and I highlighted all pipelines and fittings, so that's the system itself, and then highlighted rights with regard to the well and storage system, and I put rights in red because I don't think he actually transferred ownership of the well and storage system, but actually transferred rights to use the well and storage system, because the previous action in 94 transferred the property to BH Trust 101. This is what was granted to Grandview Properties Incorporated in 2000. In checking on how the system was assessed for tax purposes, the distribution itself was assessed with the 03 parcel, the larger trapezoid to the north, and the well and storage tanks was assessed with the 04 parcel, or the smaller triangular parcel, to the south. Mr. Benzenberg passed away in June of 2000. Joseph Lane then passed away in December of 2003, and his brother became executor of his estate. In December of 2007, David Lane provided a memorandum to the county and the California Department of Public Health that he gave the water system to a Greg Frias back in 2004. And actually, Greg Frias has been operating the system. What's also interesting that I found in the research is that Mr. Benzenberg had mortgaged his parcels out there, and in September of 2008, there was a trustee's sale, and Dirty Dirt Incorporated acquired the 03 parcel, and along with other parcels, and another company, K&L Properties, I believe, acquired the balance of the holdings of Mr. Benzenberg that were transferred to Grandview Properties. So my belief is that the 03 parcel now is actually owned by Dirty Dirt Incorporated. And we talked at the last meeting that the property, the 03 parcel and 04 parcels were up for tax sale. The taxes were paid on both of those parcels. My conclusion now of the research is that the BH Trust number 101 owns the well and storage tank site, which is again the 04 parcel, and that Grandview Properties Incorporated, or their successors in interest, owns the distribution system and has the rights to use the well and storage tanks. And I say successors in interest in that the corporation no longer exists. When you go to the California Corporation's website, it's been suspended. We took a look to see what the water system's current needs would be. We used Water Dynamics, who is a current vendor providing operations for the other systems owned by the county, both water and sewer. And the recommendation is that currently the well is connected directly to the distribution system without through a booster pump or being connected to the storage tank. So it's not only providing the volume of water into the system, it's also providing the pressure to the system, which is not a good way to operate this kind of system. And so the recommendation would be to replace the booster pump and clean out and reconnect the storage tank. The control panel is in a sad state of repair, recommended replacement. And then also because of the porous nature of the system and the fact that if it were to go down, there's a potential for contamination to backflow into the system, Water Dynamics is suggesting that a chlorination system be installed in order to constantly chlorinate the water, so if that should happen, we can take care of the bacteriological issues. Also is suggesting a telemetry system. We have telemetry on all of our other systems that actually dial the county or dial the Water Dynamics and let them know if there's a problem with the well or any of the systems so that they can go out and take care of it without waiting till the next time they visit the site, because in their proposal they're only proposing to visit the site twice a week. The estimated cost of all these improvements is about $26,805, and if you were to amortize this over the 24 months that I'm suggesting, that the temporary nature, it would amount to, in the 75 connections, it would amount to about $15 a month over that 2-year period. In addition, in talking with environmental health, testing is woefully behind and we would need to bring it current. Mentioned before that there's been some applications submitted to the state revolving fund to do some projects out there. One is a new distribution system estimated at about $1.3 million, and the second and rather new one is a new well storage tank and an interconnect to the Yedem water system estimated at about $1.3 million. If you were to build that project, tie these two systems together, it gives a higher level of redundancy for our existing Yedem system and provides a level of redundancy for the Seville system without having to build a second well by that backup well capability. What's unfortunate about the state revolving fund program is that while it will reimburse you for your engineering and environmental costs, it won't pay those up front. So if we were to pursue these grants, we would need to find a source of the funding for the design of the system. Once you've got it designed and you have the loan grant in place, then it will reimburse those expenses. However, in talking with staff at the Department of Public Health, maybe there's some other opportunities under different grant programs that are more flexible and would allow for the funding of the engineering, and maybe this could be converted to a different program to pay those costs up front. And the Department of Public Health has indicated that these projects have a very good chance, high probability of moving forward as long as there's somebody in place to oversee the operation, receive the funding, and oversee the construction of these improvements. Some of the long-term considerations: the community of Seville has expressed an interest in ultimately owning and operating the system. Two possible models. One is the private mutual water company. However, that is going to require the formation of a corporation because state law no longer allows private mutual water companies to be unincorporated. Maybe a difficult process for the community to go through. And the second is the public district process, whereas you form a public utility district or community services district, that would require a process through LAFCO. In talking with the representatives of BH Trust number 101, which owns, again, the well site and storage tank, the 04 parcel, they have expressed an interest in owning the system. They have also expressed a desire to be compensated for the use of the well and the storage tank if the county becomes receiver. That's something that's going to have to be sorted out. I guess my perspective would be I don't believe I haven't heard of anything of BH Trust number 101 coming forward anytime since 1994, and especially the current when the water system's been having problems. I would just as soon, not have to participate with them if necessary and continue to operate the system and then deal with them at the end when it goes into final permanent ownership.
But question while you're there, does your $60 per month fee include whatever cut they're going to want out of this?
The $60 per month is a little bit on the high side in meeting all of the needs and has the potential of creating a reserve and probably covering that, assuming it's not like a horrendous number. But the idea of the $60 is to reimburse the county for
Not yet, sir.
You'll be given an opportunity to speak.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I didn't know if you wanted to.
We'll call on you when it's on time for the public hearing.
Is to make sure we recover our costs and also establish a reserve. Well, we have some unknowns in the distribution system. If all of a sudden we've got a geyser out there, we're going to have to go fix it. And we're not intending to spend any money or proposing to spend any money on the distribution system. So I think there's enough in the $60 that would allow to do that, plus build a reserve that could be transferred to the new entity when it takes place, if there's money left in the reserve. And there may be enough in there to compensate BH Trust 101, assuming it's a reasonable amount, and we needed to do that.
Thank you.
I think that's a long answer to your short question. And again, I'm proposing 24 months as motivation for people to get together, decide what they're going to do, and act, so we get this thing done. It doesn't go on for a long period of time. The board's raised liability issues, and probably a difficult one to really respond to, but my suggestion is that part of this process, we need to be released from any liability that might be associated with the past operation of the water company. And state law actually, the text in the lower bullet actually comes right out of state law relative to the county can be determined not to be personally liable for its good faith, reasonable efforts to assume possession of and operate the system in compliance with the court order. Monthly rate discussion. Right now, we understand that those people that are paying $20, about $20 per month. In the state revolving fund application for the distribution system, actually identified a potential rate of $59.14. So again, staff is suggesting the $60 number so we can do the improvements to the well and storage tank, bring the testing current, make sure we can fund the ongoing operations, do any minor repairs to the distribution system if they're absolutely necessary, have a contingency for the unknowns, which I think, this thing has the opportunity for some unknowns, and should result in a reserve at the end of 24 months. However, as I indicated early on, there was some concern expressed that just identifying a number, whether it be $60 or any other number, and the second bullet is language that was suggested by the Community Water Center that be relaxed a little bit, that it would state that the court approve a monthly water service charge that will cover the cost of all expenses incurred by the county in operating the water system, including a reasonable reserve. And the concern was that if the board says, we'll do this if the rate's $60, and through the receivership process, the judge says, no, it looks like 55 is more than adequate, does that, your condition's not met, so then the conclusion would be the county would not participate. And so I can understand their concern, because that is sort of, an action that's future that would happen that we don't know what's going to happen with that yet. So maybe there's some reasonableness to this request. The idea is we want to make sure, from my perspective, recommending to you, is that when we're done, at the end of the day, the county doesn't have a $1 into this system. We want to make sure that we're fully reimbursed. To give you some examples of some rates in systems that the county is operating, Yedem, which is just down the road about a mile, the current rate is $46.25. However, if you take into account like depreciation, debt service, and other things that we're doing, the real rate is really about $73 per single-family residential connection. Delft Colony is about the same. Current rate is $41.50, and again, it's really running at about $68 per connection. And Wells Track is $26.75. Wells Track's a different animal in that it acquires its water from City of Woodlake and doesn't have its own well and system that has to be maintained and operated, so it's a little less expensive.
Question, does that mean that the first two, Yedem and Delft Colony, are actually being subsidized by the county?
Yes.
The difference between the 73 and the 46 and the 68 and the 41?
Actually, what we're doing on both of those is we're identifying depreciation, but then we're not funding it. So you take out the depreciation amount that you would calculate each year, and then which drops the operating rate, if you will, down into the 50s. So it's basically not funding depreciation, and then the subsidy out of the revolving fund that we have set up for these is the difference between these numbers and some number in the 50s for both of those.
The simple answer would be yes, we are subsidizing those water systems.
Yes.
Thank you.
engineer in me trying to give you the foundation for my answer. You're aware that we operate 9 systems, and we have a contractor that does that work. We do the billing, and again, answer to your question, typically there's an annual contribution from the revolving fund running. So the board knows that private receivership is an option in this situation, and in fact, it happened with the Traver Water Company back in 1990. Tito Balling with California Water Services, not to be confused with California Water Service Company in the area, became the owner. He actually went into receivership, took it in receivership, and then 10 years later became the owner of that system. The process, depending upon how the board acts today, is the California Department of Public Health would complete a declaration of need, a sample of which was in your packet. They then would request the Attorney General's office to petition the Superior Court of California in Tulare County to appoint a receiver, and that the receivership is temporary and voluntary on the county's part, and that the county can ask to be released at any time. Just quickly, alternatives: 1, to agree to participate; 2, decline, you don't want to participate; 3, if you have more questions, continue it for further research and discussion; or the 4th is just to take action. And with that, open to any questions that the board have. And again, there are some people in the audience that may want to speak to this item. Yes, sir.
Questions or discussion, Supervisor Vanderpool?
Britt, I just have one question. You're talking about the $60 rate. Does that include the $15
yes.
per month, the amortization?
Yes.
That you, okay.
Yes, it does.
All right, just want to be clear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to thank staff for the report, and it's been a while getting here, but I think it was worth taking the time to do this research and come back. I know that some of the concerns expressed by the chair and other members of the board has been the concern about liability to the county, about once becoming a receiver, that we would somehow be stuck with a long-term liability, and I think that that's been addressed here, and I just want to say thanks also. I'm sure they may want to speak to us here this morning, but the members of the community, the community water center, and the self-help folks for their participation in this process and bringing it forward. And actually, part of my confidence in moving forward with this is their participation not only prior to this point in time, but much more importantly in going forward, because as you say, this is a part of a process, and there's the need to follow up and finish this up, and I think those organizations will be able to provide the leadership and ability to get that done. So just want to say thanks.
Any questions, concerns, finance? Just quickly, nowhere in here is mentioned what the school rate would be. Are they going to be built as one house, 10 houses, 20 homes?
Well, that's why I use the term a residential equivalent, and currently the school is paying I think slightly over $50 per month, which is probably a little bit on the low side considering the 123 students and the 20 teachers.
However,
I just have a concern. There's nothing in here about the commercial rate or the school rate.
Well, and I guess I have this other concern and there are issues about contamination levels of nitrates, and my understanding is that probably at this point the school's use would be limited to their grounds or something, or limited, because I believe they're providing drinking water to the students, bottled drinking water or some of the source of
the rate probably would be relatively low for the school district. Number one, they have their own well which they use for irrigation of their grounds, and the water is not used for drinking. It's only used for sanitary purposes, for flushing the toilets and those kinds of things. So I would think their water usage would be relatively low because of those two conditions, probably more close to a single-family residential connection.
Okay. Just two other quick things. I think staff report's great. Supervisor Worthy is actually the only person I've discussed this with, so that everyone would know, because I had a lot of concerns about liability, and the only concern I have is that, and I'm inclined to accept staff's recommendation, but my only concern is once we accept receivership, we have people knocking on our door saying, what are you going to do about our nitrate problem? Well, it's not our problem. I want to make that real clear. It seems like we're going to be in between, what's now and what's the future. not accepting liability. I like the way the staff has set this up to where we're not accepting liability, but we're, I think in a way we're working together in a collaborative way to let this progress and create something that there can be funds received. But I still want to make it clear, I don't want to take any responsibility. If there's nitrate problems, there's nitrate problems. It's not my, I don't think it's, I would ever say, oh yes, we're going to spend county money and expect to be paid back over a certain number of years, other than this, the little quick fix that I think has been described by staff. So I'm very happy with that. And then again, the only other question I think will be addressed during the public hearing portion is we have the BH Trust number 101 and what, because they've never been a part of this, and all of a sudden, oh, we want our share. I would be concerned about what our share is and if that $60 a month is going to be adequate enough to cover what they might want out of this. So that's really all I had. I don't think there's any thing you need to respond to. I just kind of wanted to make that statement. We do want to have a public hearing on this. County Council has requested that after the public hearing, we go to a short closed session and then come back for board action. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to clarify, we had a number of public hearings today in which certain legal requirements are required to be met. This is not that kind of a public hearing. This is the board allowing people to come forward and comment on their agenda item.
Okay, that's correct.
Chairman,
this is not a public hearing. This is
scheduled as a hearing. No.
We will allow folks to come forward and address the board.
And Chairman, the other response relative to the nitrate issue on the well is that there is a grant hanging out there to drill a new well. The intent would be to drill it in a location to a depth that has no reduced levels of nitrate. So there actually is a nitrate solution that's on the table.
But this board is not accepting responsibility
for that. Yes,
that.
That's correct.
Okay, Supervisor Vanderpool.
Britt, one other thing. When you were early in your presentation, you said that you had received a comment from a constituent or someone from the public. Did you cover that already? Or
yes, that was on the identifying, or what I would call hardwiring the $60 into your conditions of accepting it, something a little more flexible.
Okay.
And that came from the Community Water Center, and they may speak to that this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this is not a public hearing, but the board will allow those that would like to comment to step forward and comment on this issue. If you would please state your name and address for the record, and we'll allow 15 minutes for any type of public or consumer comment. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Richard Hagley from 321 South Main in Sebastopol, California. I'm representing BH Trust here today. I'm also of the trustees of BH Trust. One is Virgil Bodie and one is Lee Hagley, which is my father. Both of them over the past many years have not done anything with the water system, and I understand that. At this point, they are both, one is 78 and one is 88. 2 months ago was the first I even heard of this. 3 days after that was when I met Britt. And I would like to say that everybody in the county, in the tax assessor's office, all the way to Britt, and everybody that we've met have been very kind. It's one of the kindest counties I've ever been in.
Well, thank you. That's great.
Our reason for being here did not happen because we knew of anything that was coming up, a new water system or anything like that. I was approached by my father. I am a contractor. I put in water systems. I do almost 100% public works. He asked if I was interested in this system at all, and so 3 days after that, I got Virgil Bodie out of Sacramento. We drove down here. We met Britt. Went around looking at things, and I've learned quite a bit about what has happened in the past and what is now. There's just a couple things right off I'd like to refute just a little bit, and that is in the ownership of the well, the tank, the pumps, all the infrastructure that is on property 04 that Britt refers to. The deed does not exclude any of that when it was given to BH Trust. 6 years later, when Mr. Benzenberg gave a deed to another gentleman, he is not able to give away what was already sold to BH Trust. So I just want to make that clear. Over the past 15 years, BH Trust hasn't received a dime in compensation on their property. We're not here to just get, oh, this is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We're here, and I've expressed this to both Britt and Rich with the State Health Department, that we would like to be a part of the solution in Seville and no longer a part of the problem. To some degree, I think that the county almost has to take the distribution system into receivership because of the issues of who owns it. Frankly, it's not worth much at this point. In regards to our property and the well, since we're only about a 2-year solution in this, we don't really see where that needs to be brought into receivership, because we are willing to continue to work with the county and try to improve from our perspective in any number of ways we could set this up. From a very low compensation for a complete hands-off where the county operates the well and everything that you have seen presented, to a more hands-on approach for us. Because we only have a 2-year interest, which I'd like to address later, a 2-year interest in the water system there. There's not a lot of room for big infrastructure improvements. I would like to suggest that since water that is not contaminated is hard to find in the valley because of what has happened, many miles away in the farming process, that there are ways to remove nitrates out of the water. And I don't know how much the actual drilling of the well, a new well in a new location, finding that water is part of that budget that he presented, but if you already have a well, the new water company could use this same well, purchase it, lease it, however it wants to come down. I'm a fair and reasonable man. And install a filter to filter out some of the nitrates. That is an option that I just put forth. I would like to continue to work with Britt. Like I said, this county has been good to work with so far. I don't see that our compensations do much more than cover taxes on the property and maybe some depreciation on the infrastructure that's there that we would be looking for in a hands-off operation. And that's kind of what I want to bring forward.
While you're looking, when you talk about depreciation, I have a hard time understanding how there would be any value to depreciation to a system that's in the red. So I don't know what the depreciation value would be of something that is a negative number. That just,
Well, the value of the property after the Seville water system is in providing water to farmers. So the pumping of the water and the pump, which was put in a couple years, or less than 2 years ago, and not by us, I understand, is in good working order and would be, it's the infrastructure on the property that would be depreciating.
Chairman, if I might make a comment, I think one of the again, the reason I appreciate where we have gone in terms of our staff discussion, because initially there was concern about ownership. One thing I like about this is really ownership is a non-issue at this point. We're being asked to operate a system, and I appreciate the work that Britt's done. But Britt is not a title insurance company. The county is not making any representations about actual ownership. That's something we're not having to decide today. The issue today is we have a system that's operating that needs more than TLC in the short term, and to be a vehicle to receive funding to improve the system. So ownership is something which is a future issue. It does not need to be addressed today, and I think that's a benefit as we go forward, because those things have to be worked out, obviously, in the final outcome. But as of today, it's a non-issue. We're not making a determination today that you own it or that somebody else owns it or that that's not the issue. And I think that's And that was the different, because when we first started, that was an issue, and it was a concern I had. Who owns the system? And is somebody going to give us some ownership so that we could, act on that? I've been, and I appreciate the effort by Community Water Service folks telling me, and informing me that it's not about ownership, it's about operation. And that's really all we're doing, is we're stepping in to operate on behalf of whoever ends up owning a system. But right now, we're going to be the receiver of funding that will improve the system. We're going to make some improvements ourselves, some small things, and we're going to be able to provide water to people who live there and depend upon this water. So if the board takes this action. So I think the ownership issue is something yet to be decided and does not have to be addressed really today.
And we're not claiming ownership of the water system. Just the portion of providing water to the edge of the property is about where our ownership ends. And because of that, I would like you to think of us more as the river that you're going to be taking the water out of than a water system operator. That's where I think that well has been in the past, that the water system operator has utilized that well. So anyway, that's what that's worth.
Thank you.
Let's see. As to the dollar amount for a hands-off use of the property, we had come up with $7 per resident. I think that is more than fair for the use of a piece of property like that.
Monthly?
What's it, monthly? $7 per resident per month.
Per resident or per connection?
Connection.
It would be per resident. Case in point, if you had a 50-unit apartment building, there'd be 50 residents. And 50 times the use, 50 families, 50.
There's no big apartment complex. There's 75 hookups.
There's 75 hookups. There may be more than one resident on a piece of property. That's all. That's why I use the term resident.
Okay.
I don't know that it's a big issue. It's probably a 1 or 2, maybe a 3 resident issue.
Chairman?
You're changing my mind.
Yes. The issue of who's entitled to what revenue and income and such is something that if your board decided to act as receiver, you could go into court, bring all these people in, and that we know of there are at least 5 entities or people claiming ownership of some sort, and get that resolved by a court. That's not going to be resolved by your board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to address the board on this issue?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Rebecca, and I live at 15524 Avenue 381 in Seville. First of all, I just want to share with you guys, board members, that yesterday we were up in Sacramento lobbying for AB 1242, which is the human right to water, which is safe drinking water, not just for the people from Seville or the people from Tulare County, but for the whole state of California. And let you know that there was people from Alpaw, Lindsay, Porterville, Goshen, Orosi, and Visalia as well. And we did talk to a lot of the assembly members there to support the safe drinking water. And we all got an opportunity to share our water issues in our own communities. And to their surprise, they're very surprised about our water issues. And as a matter of fact, I shared my view about our school district. We have no safe drinking water for our children. And their question to me was, what is your local government doing for you all? I said, well, we're all working together. And I said, tomorrow's our big day. And they kind of wanted to know what the results were. But I just wanted to share with you that there is an assembly bill that's going to be heard today. Another thing I wanted to emphasize is that I just heard BH 101 speak, and I wish they would have stepped up many years ago. But we had to come this far to get safe drinking water for our people. And I'm just here to just let you know that I'm sure you guys haven't forgotten about us. And I hope that you guys support as being our receivership temporarily. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for hearing this.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alex Guerrero. I live at 15510 Avenue 381. My comment is very short. I'm glad that all these people here that have been involved with the Seville issue, they've done great work, and I appreciate, every effort they've made. Also, all I'm going to say is, we're all keeping our fingers crossed, and we expect a positive outcome on this. And like I said, we like to keep working together, hand in hand, and hopefully have a better future and a brighter one for all our communities, not just Seville, but all our surrounding communities in the area. Thank you.
I'm Paul Boyer from Self-Help Enterprises, and first of all, I want to thank county staff, both health department and resource management, for all the work that was done here. I've learned a lot about Seville, and I've worked there for a few years. There's a number of people here from the community. Becky, who came up earlier, she's a member of the school board. School's a big part of this, as you know. And I won't go over all the history about the applications and what have you and the problems out there, but we still are in favor of the county being a receiver of the system. Actually glad to see it up to 24 months. I don't know if that all will be necessary, but we were originally thinking 12 months, but things do happen. And then on the rate, honestly, if there's a way that doesn't have to be that high, I realize you need to have a rate that is going to cover for contingencies. When we did an application for the water lines, we had to estimate if the whole project was 100% loan, what the water service charge would have to be based on their operational costs at the time. And that's how we came up with a $59 figure. Again, we hope that the cost would be lower, but I think the people from Seville can speak much better about the costs and their affordability to them than I can. So again, we hope you will go forward with this. Thank you.
While they're coming up, the $60 rate was set just to cover that, I believe, $28,000 or so initial investment the county would have to put in. It had nothing to do with anything long term. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Delia Martinez, and I live at 15632 and a half Seville Avenue, and I'm a resident there in Seville. And I was born and raised there, and for as long as that I have known, Seville has had so much problems with the water. The water goes off. Sometimes we're showering, the power goes off, we don't got no water. There's dirty water coming out of the fountains. And just so many problems, leaking pipelines everywhere. All I'm hoping is that somebody fixes it. Because if there was an owner somewhere, where was he when we needed him? Now everybody wants to be an owner. I barely moved back. I used to live there from the time I was a child. And I barely moved back about 2 years I have now that I came back for my parents' sake because they're ill. And sometimes they don't have water. They have to take medication. My mother has to be buying water off the store because the water's bad and I don't want her to get sick. But sometimes, I remember when Mr. Bensenberg was the owner, or supposedly the owner, he'd come and knock on our door and come and collect the water bill. After he passed away, I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen anybody come to collect the bill yet. I don't know some people say they pay water. There's men complaining that nobody pays their water bill in Seville. I have not seen a bill or anything since I moved back. So, we need a lot of help there. The water is just terrible there. You take, in the morning, you got a little bit of pressure. By the end of the day, if you haven't taken a shower early, you don't have water. You just have to wait to whenever the pump decides to open. Or if somebody has, even my dad has gone to go to the end of the street, and he's an old man, and he goes down to the end of the street to try to turn on the pump to see if we can get water into our house. So I'm just hoping that somebody will help us, because we really need the help. A lot of kids out there too, they're in school and they're getting bad water also. Thank you.
I can assure you that I think you'll probably be seeing the water bills if this decision does happen. People will be collecting.
Well, that's okay, but at least we get water.
Sir, there's a little button right down there on the right-hand side. You can raise that podium up. It's right in front of your hand. There.
I don't need to. I'm going to be here though. My name is Richard Haberman with the California Department of Public Health, and I'm here to give a little bit of background. We were asked in December to help this community, and the information that you've heard today from Mr. Fussell, put together with the help from the Community Water Center and Self-Help Enterprises, and as the lady said prior to my coming up here, we have a water system here that our department is moving to put into receivership. We've been waiting because the community has said to us they would prefer the county to be the receiver. And so as soon as we have a decision that you're willing or not willing, we will either go forward with you being the receiver, or we will find somebody else who's a willing receiver. And I just wanted to make that point clear. I think the work that has been done by Self-Help Enterprises and Community Water Center has been tremendous and has helped a lot of systems like that in this county. And I want to say one more thing. The real problem we have here, the lady before me described, we can get bottled water to solve the nitrate problem. But when you can't take a shower or flush your toilet, you have a real public health problem. And that's what I'm afraid of if some of these facilities fail and there's no funds or receiver or operator to make the repairs. We at the state level can help with repairs if we have a legitimate operator operating under court-appointed receivership. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board on this issue?
Yes, thank you. My name is Laurel Firestone. I'm with the Community Water Center. I think you all have seen there are a number of very complicated issues here that need to be resolved. And unfortunately, the community hasn't been able to move forward in fixing these problems because of many of these conflicts or issues that have not been able to be resolved yet. And so we hope that today the county will approve being a receiver so that finally we can move forward, get some funds, work hand in hand with all of the entities involved, the community, Department of Public Health that has a number of funding sources available, county staff, and of course ourselves, Community Water Center and Self-Help Enterprises. To make sure that the community does secure a safe and affordable water source and a long-term solution. I think that 24 months is a reasonable amount of time. We certainly feel that we're certainly committed to working with LAFCO and the community and all of our other partners to find a sustainable long-term entity to operate this into the future, but really appreciate the county hopefully stepping up and enabling us to move forward in the meantime with fixing some of these emergency issues. We were the ones that suggested a slight change in the conditions just so that it's clear that what your intention is, whether you are intending to basically, the cost, $60 a month, is based on estimates, and many things may change once we get actual bids in, we find out some other actual costs, and also find out, for example, whether or not there are alternative well sources that the community may use. For example, the school has a well and may not have to use BH Trust's well, which is contaminated with nitrates. So there's a number of variables, and since we don't have the exact numbers at this point, it seems prudent for for the Board of Supervisors, just to make clear whether its intention of whether it's conditioning, it would condition this based on a set number or based on the understanding that it would recover all of its costs no matter what that is, including a reserve. And so that was our suggestion. That way, depending on what we find out the actual costs are, we don't have to come back and get additional board approval if it's a couple dollars off, for example. So again, just like to reaffirm our commitment to working with the county and the community. County staff has been wonderful. I think that was a very reasonable and effective report, and we hope that you will approve it today so we can move forward, and look forward to working with you.
Before Ms. Firestone leaves, one thought comes to my mind. I think the idea is we need to pick a number that we would start with, but perhaps like 60 days out, if we determine that number is more or less than what we need, then giving discretion to the court or to the agency to make those adjustments, just so that, we think it's probably best to set something to begin with, because it's going to take a while for us to operate this system to really determine what the costs or true costs are going to be. So that might be a kind of another way of handling it. I think we're only looking at recovering our costs. The $60 figure is trying to be safe for us, but we're obviously not trying to get more out of the people than is what is necessary. Right. And I guess the one variable would be what kind of reserve, what's a reasonable kind of reserve that would go with that. But I think we all agree there needs to be some kind of reserve, because we're starting off with zero. Right. And there will be things come up that need to be fixed probably along the way. So that might be an approach of how to handle it. Yeah, I guess I would just say, we would like to work with the county in terms of figuring out costs. Part of the $60, well, a lot of the $60, I guess $15 is based on repaying, the amount that the county might have to front. And it's not clear whether the county would have to, how much exactly the county would have to front, and whether or not that could also be covered by loans. There is potentially, there's potentially grant funding. There is emergency funding. It's unclear whether we could access that, but it's like if the county is an entity, it's more likely that they would be able to, and then they wouldn't have to pay back those sorts of funds. So that was the idea, but I think just making it clear so that we can work with the county and the courts and the entities involved to come to a number that makes sense to cover all the county's costs with a reserve without having to come back before the Board of Supervisors and redo this whole process in the future. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would make the same. We're not starting at zero. We're starting with a red number of nearly $27,000 based on the estimate from a contractor. Anyone else wanting to speak to this matter? Thank you. We will adjourn to close a short closed session, and we'll be back, I would say, in 10 minutes. Well, thank you for being patient with us. We are back in open session, and we will bring this back to board for discussion or decision. Mr. Chairman, I want to express my thanks to all those who have been concerned. It's been kind of a long process, but I do think it's been worth the time and effort to get to this point. I know it's answered a lot of questions of members of the board, and so at this time it would be my intention to move for the approval of this matter. And I would like to include in my motion on the fee that it be set at $60 initially, and we include the language that was proposed as far as whatever the actual cost is and a reasonable reserve, and that matter could then be resolved without having to be brought back to the Board of Supervisors. Again, I think that this is a benefit to the community that is necessary. We are well aware of the difficulties out there, the problems of not only just the quality of the water, but even having a quantity of water to deal with the public health issues. And this is an opportunity for the county to step in, assist this community, and really minimize our exposure. And that really was a major concern, I know, for many of the board members. So that's my motion. So we have a motion with a slight amendment to staff recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment. I really think that as long as we're including that we're going to be running this like it's going to be a business, which it is, and that the costs are established at 60. If they go up, the rates are going to go up. If they go down, the rates are going to go down. But bills need to be paid. The county needs to be reimbursed for the money that we're putting out there, and we do need to run it like a business. So look forward to seeing that happen, and please keep us as informed as to whether you're seeing costs go up or down and what's going on with it. So thank you.
Will do, Board. Was that a second?
And I will second the motion, yes.
Motion by Supervisor Worthy, second by Supervisor Vanderpool. It is unanimous, 4 votes for the positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
We will adjourn to closed session. County Council, we do have additional items for consideration.
We do, Mr. Chairman. Item A is off your board's closed session agenda. You have items C through I. I do not anticipate